and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Alderman Hoffman.
Here.
Alderman Schuman.
Here.
Alderman Rucker. Alderman Ross.
Here.
Alderman Morose.
Here.
Alderman Osteen.
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Harmonson.
Here. You understand, Alderman Rucker, no?
Unfortunately, we had some technical difficulties, and he will not be able to join us.
All right, we're going to start off tonight with a proclamation. And before we get into it, we received different proclamations throughout the year, some long before I got here. And this one was with the Ronald McDonald House Share the Heart. And before I read it, I just kind of want to give you some information. I went to Gina and asked her a little bit about this, because the city had done this in the past, have not done it at least the last year or so. So I called down to Springfield and talked to the Share the Heart. And if you have a chance to someday just Google it, see what they do. They sent me a map, and when they first started doing this, they've helped over 15,000 families. And it's a map. Camden County was 124, Miller County was, Camden County 124, Miller County was 24 this last year. And what they do is if you have a sick child that's needing some care, the two Ronald McDonald houses will bring their family and let them stay there for free. And they're close to the children, and it's just a really, really neat thing. And so I thought it was served the purpose to bring it back this year. So here we go. This is proclamation, Ronald McDonald House Week, February 12th through the 18th, 2024. I understand this is the 15th already, but the way it fell in between the board meetings, we still have some time. But whereas Springfield's two Ronald McDonald House programs have divided home away from home and this invaluable source of hope and comfort for families and seriously ill and injured children who must travel far from home for medical treatment. And the Ronald McDonald House is located in Springfield, Missouri, allow their guests to maintain close contact with their seriously ill children by providing a secure and supportive environment at no cost. And the Ronald McDonald House near Cox South and House for Mercy Kids have served the needs of 124 Camden County families, and as I said, 24 from Miller County. On Wednesday, January 24, 2024, 70 McDonald's restaurants and various other locations will begin showing their support by asking customers to share their heart by adopting a $1, $5, or $20 to Ronald McDonald House Charities of the Osage, Charities of the Ozarks through the Share the Heart campaign. And the following generous contributions have provided sponsorship, funding, and underwriting the cost of the Share of Heart campaign: McDonald's Ozarks KY3 Television, Great Southern Mid-Am Metal Forming, and Color Graphic Printing. The Ronald McDonald's House in Osage Beach is participating in Share a Heart campaign and will continue through February 29th, 2024. I, Michael Harmonson, Mayor, do hereby proclaim February 12th through the 18th, 2024 as Ronald McDonald House Week. In witness thereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the city of Osage Beach, Missouri to affix its 15th day of February. I even had a heart printed for me, took a picture, and I think they're going to put it on the website down there. So if you want to check out Share the Heart and go to Ronald McDonald, go to our McDonald's here to the 29th. Even if you don't want to eat the food, maybe drop off a donation. All right. Next, we're going to move on to citizens' communication. This is a time set aside on the agenda for citizens and visitors to address the mayor and board on any topic that is not a public hearing. For those here in person, speakers will be restricted to 3 minutes unless otherwise permitted. Minutes may not be donated or transferred from one speaker to another. Visitors attending via online will be in listen-only mode. Any questions or comments for the mayor and board may be sent to the city clerk at tberreth@osagebeach.org no later than 10 a.m. on the board meeting day, the first and third Thursday of each month. Submitted questions and comments may be read during the citizens' communications section of the agenda. The Board of Aldermen will not take any action on any item not listed on the agenda, nor will it respond to questions, although staff may be directed to respond at a later time. The Mayor and Board of Aldermen welcome and value input and feedback from the public. If there is anybody here in person who would like to address the board, please come on up, sign in, and you'll have 3 minutes to address the board. I know somebody wants to. on up, Tristan, if you don't
There's a
mind.
clipboard
signing.
up
I've done this before, sorry guys.
No worries.
Do you need a new battery? Oh, there, we're just gonna figure out what button to push. Operator here.
Pretty much. Time in your headspace.
If you speak.
I know, I love that.
Don't worry, you'll all have 3 minutes. Tristan, if you want to go ahead, you can.
Sure.
You all get your 3 minutes, so.
Good deal.
Yeah, there's a microphone right up there so the people at home can hear you as well, because
Got
you're on Facebook and TV right now.
All right, wow, that's exciting. I would have dressed for it if I knew that. Sorry. My name is Tristan Enemark. I am an owner of Bless This Burger food truck. We started about 2 years ago in Lake Ozark, and we've been working in Osage Beach for the last year and a half, and we're pretty excited about it. We're really excited that the Osage Beach City has taken this on to try to get us out of the peddler's law and into something more applicable to us, which would be the food truck law. As we read this, there were just a few things that stood out to me, and I just want to bring them up real fast. One of the things that we encounter when we go to other towns is occasionally they'll have distance restrictions, which means you can only be so close to another place that sells food and beverage. Camdenton doesn't do that at all. They have doubled down on the idea that basically if you own the property, whoever rents the property gets to decide what they do on that property because this is America. Lake Ozark has decided to get a little farther away from there, and they've had, I'm going on memory, so please don't quote me, but it's somewhere around 100 feet or 30, there you go, 30 to 40 yards, something like that. That's doable. That's not very far. And also what's important about this is that they have a clause in there that says if the owners of the property also have food and beverage and they want you there and they don't care whether you're there, then that supersedes everything. And so because again, they have the right to do whatever they want on their property. And so when I read this, I realized that I do business with Mayor Harmison and other people, Charlie Foxtrot's, the bar across, lots of different restaurants, so on and so forth. They actually seek us out. They want us to come on their property. They want us to help them. They want us to provide a service, so on and so forth. And so what ended up happening was we wouldn't be allowed to do that. If this passed as written, I wouldn't be allowed to work at Latitude. I wouldn't be allowed to work on his shop. I wouldn't be allowed to work at the bar. I wouldn't be, basically it's really cutting out the food trucks, period. Just to let you know, Eldon has purposefully, and they even told us, they've been trying to cut food trucks out of their city for a long time. So they set up a 250 mark, which basically cut out every single food truck from. So I'm just saying that if we don't want to be like other cities that are trying to purposefully keep them out, I just encourage us to go down to something reasonable. Then the other thing I had a problem with was there are a lot of people that work here at the lake that live in other counties, and they do a lot of good for our city. And so we've got some food truckers that come from Morgan County, and that's where their commissary is. And so they would really just like to come here and have the same rights as everyone else, right? They're lake people, they live at the lake, they have business at the lake, they pay taxes. And so they just want to do that. But as this is written right here, only people in Camden and Miller County would be allowed to do that, and people from Morgan County would be penalized. So if we could address this, thanks so much.
All right, thank you, Tristan.
Hey everybody, my name is Ashley Hayes. I'm here representing the Lake of the Ozarks Food Truck Coalition. Super excited that this bill is being looked at and revised. It is a long time coming. With the Osage Beach City deciding to sponsor our food truck festival, it's really helped us move a number of things forward with bringing to light the number of locally owned businesses are on wheels here at the Lake of the Ozarks. They're owned by people, your neighbors, people you go to school functions with, the people you go to grocery stores with. We buy from local businesses here that supply us with our goods. I personally have a local coffee roaster in Camdenton. We're all very local, so we are addressing part of this new written bill where it addresses the distance guidelines. As he mentioned previously, there are several private business owners here at the lake that invite us onto their property And if you continue with this as written, these private business owners won't be able to have us on their property for their functions because their neighbor serves food and beverage. So if you are going to insist on a distance clause being written into this law, please consider the option to allow the neighboring businesses to write us in permission to be there. The reason I say this, I just own a coffee truck. I don't sell food. And I ran into this business in Eldon. This is why I worked with the Board of Aldermen unsuccessfully for about 6 months trying to get this rewritten, because as a coffee truck owner, I was not allowed to park at a business whose neighbor sold Chinese food carry out only. And so you can see kind of where my conflict of interest was in that. And so if you could address that matter in specific, as well as the matter where an extra $250 will be charged to any food truck owner whose commissary is not located in Camden or Miller County. Representing just our food truck coalition alone, I can think of at least 2 trucks that are based out of Morgan County that are not only regularly at our festival. One of them helped me find the festival, started that back in 2021. And so we'd really be punishing our neighbors for doing this. We all know that Lake of the Ozarks takes up a really big spot. It is more than just Miller and Camden, and I really hope that's taken into consideration. Moving forward, I really appreciate the board taking time to work with the food truck owners. We are always welcome to answer your questions. We are really excited to work with you. And I really hope that you guys come see us in May when we do the food truck festival at the park, because that has been doing some great things for not only the community at the parks, but the food truck owners and the local businesses that are all part of it as well. So thank you guys. If you ever have any questions, all of us food truck owners love having you come up to the window and just hit us with as many questions as you have. We love talking about it. It's our favorite thing. So if you could please take those 2 things into consideration when moving forward and passing this bill. I do believe those 2 changes would be the best changes that you could make to this bill to help benefit the local business owners. Please and thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Anybody else like to speak? I know you're kind of shy, but come on up.
Who are you again?
Hi, Bethany Gregory. I own Charlie Foxtrots with my husband. We're a new bar in Osage Beach across from the Elks. Our original business model was to actually have food trucks at our establishment all the time. So it affects me personally if the verbiage isn't changed to where business owners can, I guess, waive it, or I don't know what the right terminology, but say, hey, we're okay with them being within this certain distance from us because we want them there. Also, food trucks are just small businesses, good hardworking people that are trying to make a living, and as long as it's not impacting other people in a negative or a big way, I think that's kind of the biggest point. And I don't want to belabor, I feel like these people spoke very well to their point. So just from the business owner perspective who is really wanting to establish food trucks at our place regularly, I just wanted to put my 2 cents in from that perspective, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Anybody else like to speak? All right. Well, you're welcome to stick around for the whole meeting. All right, so we're going to move on to the approval for the consent agenda. If the board so desires, the consent agenda may be approved in a single motion. Has the board had a chance to review the minutes from the Aldermen meeting January 11th and February 1st, 2024? And if there are any comments or questions, if not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So approved. You're so moved.
All right. Sorry, I had my microphone off. Alderman Ross, is there a second?
Second.
All right. Alderman Hoffman, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Approval of the consent agenda is passed. All right, first we're going to move on to Bill 24-05, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, amending Chapter 390, Section 390.010 definition, Section 390.030 prohibited operation of a golf cart, Section 390.040 requirements for operating a recreational off-highway vehicle or utility vehicle on city streets, roads, or alleyways within the city. Section 390.070, prohibited operation in a recreational off-highway vehicle or utility vehicle of the city code for various purposes as set forth. This is the second reading. Chief Davis, please.
I have nothing further, Mayor.
All right, any further comments or questions from the board?
I have one
Alderman Ross.
question. I have one comment, one question. First of all, I appreciate the work that the chief, and I'm sure Cole was involved in doing for this. But the one question I have is 42 Highway between, we'll call it Walgreens, down to the city limits. Would they be allowed on that road or not? Because they're not excluded, but it seems like I'm not sure, maybe Scrivener type stuff, but it seems like they wouldn't be allowed, but we didn't call it out as not being allowed.
They are allowed.
They are
It'd be
allowed.
no different than KK, because speed limit's 45.
Okay, all right, because I thought somewhere about state highways, but, okay, good enough, just wondered what it was, that's all right. And that's all I have, thanks.
Any other comments or questions?
I just want to clarify when we're talking about age of operation, that this would include minors that have driving permits in the company of adults?
It'd be no different than an automobile. If they had a permit, they'd have to have a licensed driver with them.
All right, just want to clarify that, please.
And I know that was discussed at the last meeting, and for the record, somebody just wrote a ticket this week for somebody driving a moped without a license, full-grown adult but didn't have a license, thought they could drive a moped on city streets, and they got a ticket for it, so that's, that law in action.
Okay.
Any other comments from the board? I'll have one comment. The only thing I have is when this does become legal, that whether it's through a public announcement or whatever, we make clear, concise what is exactly legal and not legal. So there's just no fine hairs there. That's all I have to say. All right, do I have a motion to approve second reading?
So moved.
Alderman Morose. Do I have a second? All right. All those, roll call, please. Alderman Ross. You seconded it, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I didn't say that. Roll call, please.
Alderman Osteen?
I am an apprehensive yes.
Alderman Morose?
Yes.
Alderman Ross?
Yes.
Alderman Rucker? Alderman Schuman?
Yes.
Alderman Hoffman?
I'm a solid yes.
All right, second reading passes. Next, we'll move on to Bill 24-06, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Omnigo Software LLC for RMS and CAD software for the police department over a 5-year period beginning in 2024 for an amount not to exceed $402,077.24. Second reading, Chief Davis.
Again, I don't have anything further unless you have any questions.
All right, anything from the board? Yes, Alderman Osteen.
Just one question. Our valid through date for this is only till the end of this month?
Is what? I'm sorry.
It's only through the end of this month regarding this bid, correct? February 2024?
Which bid are we talking about? I'm sorry?
That was the,
What's on the agenda?
that was the
Omnigo.
quote. The quote was good until the end of this month.
So
But
will
but
we?
the date, the amounts go till 2028.
Okay. Just want to clarify that because I thought maybe we're under a deadline on getting this approved and submitted to them.
All right, any other comments? Alderman Hoffman.
I remember we had an issue about whether this was actually going to bring the cost down because we're locked into it, but they could still adjust the prices, correct?
Yeah, I think it's based on their costs.
Okay, so there was no change in the optics of that from your perspective on,
The thing is, they can increase, because we're on year to year now, they can do that to us.
so it's not changing it?
No, I mean, if, on our 1-year contract, which I don't know when it ends, but let's say it's the end of this year, if their costs go up in 2024, they can jack our price up for 2025.
So we're really getting a price reduction just on, because we're doing 5 years, we're getting it a little cheaper?
Yep, bulk discount.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All right, Chief. Do I have a motion to approve second reading?
Motion to approve.
Alderman Schuman, do I have a second?
Second,
Alderman Hoffman, roll call, please.
Alderman Hoffman?
yes.
Alderman Schuman?
Yes.
Alderman Rucker? Alderman Ross?
Yes.
Alderman Morose?
Yes.
Alderman Osteen?
Yes.
All right, second reading passes. Under new business, Bill 24-07, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, accepting part of Gamble Circle into city inventory. This is the first and second reading. Assistant City Administrator Mike Welty, please.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. Over the summer 2023, the Osage Beach Special Road District did assist the citizens of Gamble Circle with improving the part of the road highlighted in red. And just for reference, that is on page 72 in the exhibit where they are dedicating that portion to the city. That portion now resembles the other portion of the road that the city already owns. Neither portion currently meet the city guidelines, but the portion that we did not own previously is now essentially the same as the portion that we already owned. There was some confusion on this, and if I caused that, I apologize. There's already stop signs on the road. There's already speed limit signs on the road on both sides. The main issue that I want to make sure the board is aware of with taking this road is that it is very narrow, but the residents that live on the road have dealt with that, whether it is private or public, for as long as they've lived there. And the driveway configurations on the road do not really lend themselves for us to make it a one-way road one way or the other. So the residents have asked that the road stay a two-way road. Now, I did have a conversation with Alderman Rucker earlier, and he had mentioned the idea of putting up a sign that simply said narrow lanes, and I don't think that's a problem. I think we can do that. But ultimately, this is the same type of situation that we have done many times before, where we have accepted a road that does not meet our guidelines because it just simply can't be brought to our guidelines. And that is what we are asking here. The only difference with this one is the city was not involved with the improvement of the road. All the road improvement was done by the Special Road District and the citizens of that road. The only thing else that I would mention is that there are no fog lines on the road, but that's something that the city can take care of pretty easily. So I do recommend approval.
All right, comments from the board? Questions? Alderman Osteen.
Just one comment. About a year ago, we had a targeted list of streets we wanted to bring into city inventory. I'm just trying to remember, was this part of what we had discussed about a year ago?
Now, this road was purposely left off, sir, because we already knew in my conversations with some of the citizens on this road that this was going to be coming to us in this way. So since we already knew it was going to be coming to us and that the plans were already in place to put the asphalt down on that portion, we did not include it, no, sir.
All right, just curious, because I had revisited that list and don't remember seeing this as part of what we had targeted for roads we wanted to bring into inventory. That's all.
All right, anybody else? Seeing none, now Alderman Ross.
Well, I guess I'm trying to understand. And by the way, I think we should get as many roads in our inventory. They should be paved. Fred and I have talked about this before. But why is it that we're bringing this in and it doesn't meet you say it can't be brought to meet guidelines because of some configuration issue?
It's really more of a cost burden issue. I mean, I'm sure that if the city wanted to put the money into it, we could improve both sides of this road. But the citizens and the Special Road District have improved the road to the same level of quality as the side that we already own. It's just a very weird situation. It's the only road in town where we only own half of it.
Okay. All right, very good, thank you.
All right, anyone else? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve first reading?
Motion to approve.
Alderman Ross, do I have a second?
I'll
Alderman Osteen, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, first reading passes. We'll go to second reading, same bill. 2407, an ordinance of the city of Osage Beach, Missouri, accepting part of Gamble Circle into city inventory. Anybody think of any questions in the last 10 seconds? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve second reading?
So moved.
Alderman Morose, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Schuman, roll call, please.
Alderman Ross?
Yes.
Alderman Rucker? Alderman Schuman?
Yes.
Alderman Hoffman?
Yes.
Alderman Osteen?
Yes.
Alderman Morose?
Yes.
All right, second reading passes. All right, moving on to Bill 24-08, an ordinance of the city of Osage Beach, Missouri, authorize the mayor to execute an agreement with the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, sublease number 697 DCM-24-L-0008 at Lacey Fine Memorial Airport, Kaiser, Missouri. This is the first reading. Airport Manager Ty Dinsdale, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of the board. This is a request for the city of Osage Beach to enter into a no-cost lease agreement with the FAA. This agreement will give easements to the FAA in order for them to operate and maintain their existing FAA-owned navigational aid facilities that are located on the airfield. Airport Department recommends approval.
All right. Board have any comments or questions? Alderman Hoffman.
This doesn't impede the process of of the swap that's going on in any way, does it?
No, no, sir. Yeah.
That's all I had. Thanks.
All right. All right, anybody want to make the motion to approve the first reading? Alderman Ross, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Rose, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. First reading passes. Next, we're going to move on to Bill 24-09, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, amending Chapter 610 peddlers and solicitors, Section 610.010 definitions, Section 610.030 identification card requirement for peddlers and solicitors available for canvassers, Section 610.040 fees, Section 610.050 application for identification card, Section 610.060 contents of application, Section 610.070 issuance of identification card, Section 610.090 denial administrative revocation, Section 610.100 hearing on appeal, Section 610.130 revocation of card, Section 610.160 violations to be prosecuted as trespass, adding Section 610.170 additional requirements for mobile food establishment purposes of the city code for various purposes as set forth. That is a mouthful. All right, first reading. Before I go to comments and questions from the board, I'm going to address the board and the guests we have here tonight. This all started, actually during the campaign trail 2 years ago about food trucks here in the city of Osage Beach. And once I became mayor, they wanted to be more visible here in the city. They wanted to not pay some of the absorbent fees that they had in the past, being labeled a peddler when they were food trucks. And back in the 80s, the city of Osage Beach actually passed a peddler's license, which was voted on by the city. And peddlers at that time, I think it never mentioned the word food trucks. It was simply people that would come down here, sell stuff. And the powers that be at that time did not want to see the city with a bunch of trucks down here selling gadgets and going door to door and that sort of thing. And somehow over the course of the several years, the food trucks got lumped into that. So I did assign this to the Citizens Advisory Committee, because my hope was that we could all live together in harmony and brick and mortars could get along with food trucks and everybody could make a living and not stop anybody from thriving. And so they suggested to the board what to do. The board changed some things. With all that being said, our city attorney took this on and we were able to not have to change peddlers law, but basically make a food truck ordinance. In doing that, there's some things I think we felt we left out. In talking with Tristan today, he made some very good points. He does come to Harmy's Cheese Store, and we sell cheese, but the way the ordinance is written right now is those that sell food, and cheese is a food, so that would not work here. Also, it was brought up by Charlie Foxtrot's, right across the street, they have establishments, and that too. So to me, it's a no-brainer to lower the number of feet, but also include some waiver, so I could, as a owner of Harmony, say, I want him out here. The county thing is a little more difficult, but talking with the city attorney about that, it's real tough, and it's a kind of a road that we've not gone down before, where you restrict or charge certain counties more than other counties. And whether that can be held up in a court of law, who knows? But you just need to be real careful when you go down that path of charging people differently for different places where they live. I want to see brick and mortars and the food trucks work in harmony. So I just kind of wanted to give you the history, how we get to this point. So here we go. Any comments or questions from the board?
Can I?
First, can I read what Kevin sent me?
Yes, certainly.
I want to get this out. I
Yes,
want to make sure
yes.
he can't represent. So he sent this to me today. It says, board members, I propose a floor amendment to section 610.040, removing A, B, and C, and add a new A, $10 per day. I also want to make sure permits issued are only good for 90 days, and our other permits must be obtained, giving us a chance to revisit any issues, new licenses, or sales tax issues. You should all have a copy of that in front of you. I just want to make sure that that gets on record, that he did send it to me. So.
And I also, yes, and just for the record too, I'm glad you read that. I did check with the city attorney just to know the rules of order here is, he cannot make a floor motion by an email. So
Yep,
that's
I
not a
just wanted to
motion
make
at this
sure that-
point, but it's something he did want to do, so I appreciate you
Yep, I
bringing
just
that.
wanted to make sure that it was noted.
I think it stands as comment, but not,
Right,
it's not a motion.
Not a motion, no,
Right.
not a motion, just a comment.
Right. All right, now, Alderman Rose. I'm sorry, city attorney has one clarification, please.
Excuse me. Okay. I do agree with Alderman Rucker on what he's recommending as far as $10 a day. And basically, I also didn't realize that we did not include Morgan County. I guess I never looked at that thoroughly. Camden and Miller, well, shoot, it's Lake of the Ozarks, and Morgan County is part of the Lake of the Ozarks. And I think that should definitely be included, without a doubt.
All right, thank you. Cole, did you have something?
I just wanted to kind of briefly go through the drafting decisions in here, because while I was given some direction, it was kind of broad, it was very broad, so I made some educated guesses in here. And I also do want to respond to some of the public comments, because I think there's some really good points in there. First of all, the waiver issue of, if Charlie Foxtrots, for instance, wants to allow a food truck on premise, that's easy to write in, and that just, I was writing this from scratch, and frankly, that's an oversight on my part to not have thought of it. So that was not an intentional exclusion to say that the property owner can't permit one on their property. So that.
Or their neighbor's property.
Well, so the next two, the 200-foot rule and what we're calling the Camden and Miller, but we kind of said, basically the local commissary rule. The original version I wrote that we first heard last year in 2377 did not have those two. And when we heard that ordinance, the board, the sense I got was the board direction very clearly was to go back and add those two provisions, the 200-foot rule and the local commissary rule. So I believe 200 feet was in the specific instruction, but I wasn't given a definition of local. I made the arbitrary decision to say Camden and Miller because the city is located in Camden and Miller counties. There are two home counties. I can't find anything that says that will or won't hold up. We are in uncharted waters a little bit on that. I'm not, if it were me, I would be, I'm not completely comfortable with telling you that the Camden Miller rule or even a Camden Miller Morgan rule would hold up. And I want to make a comment that's really more a policy argument, or a policy comment than a legal comment. But the 200-foot rule allowing a business, so Charlie Foxtrots being able to keep a food truck off of a parcel that neighbors them, the old Jay Bruners, for instance, which is next door, or something across the street, does give some property owners the ability to control the planning and zoning use of property that they don't currently own or have any right to. And I do think that does certainly go against the policy, if not perhaps what Carrie would say, the ideology of our planning and zoning code. And it does definitely create some odd situations where the hospital is a very large place. So if the hospital wants to permit a food truck, they can find somewhere within 200, with a 200-foot buffer. But another employer that wants to invite in a food truck to provide food just for their employees, just for, even if it's for a private event, Everson Company would have to get at least Pablitos and probably Subway as well to approve, and maybe the Tapatia on the other side. I'm not sure how far that is. So it does end up creating some kind of unusual situations where your neighbors control the use on your property.
Mayor, can I?
Yes, please, Gary.
I would just say that, one of the most important and fundamental and foundation aspects of planning and zoning is to provide equitable uses of properties within the community based on zone. And to put an arbitrary number, whether it's 200, 150, it doesn't necessarily matter. What you are doing is basically putting one property owner at a benefit level that the other one is not. And by way of what we do from a planning and zoning perspective, that's not a good ethical way to approach anything. So the basics of the ideology, and most of the time I hesitate to use specific locations, but say Wicked Willie's, for example, and you have Van Hook's next door, and then you have Safe Light next door to them. If Van Hook's wanted to bring in a food truck one day, and our code wouldn't allow that, but Safe Light then could partner with that food truck and make any kind of money off of them that just because of general location, Van Hook's could not. And therein lies where you get into inequitable situations with separate property owners. So I think it's, I'm not going to call it dangerous, but I'm not sure of the ethics level of doing something like that regardless.
One last comment I do want to add, specifically the Charlie Foxtrot's example, since they've already got a contract, that also brings in a grandfathering issue that we haven't really accounted for here, which again would be solved by allowing a waiver, would be solved by eliminating the 200-foot rule. But just for the record, that would, if passed, if we do pass it the way I wrote it, which, I do feel like I've written it the way I was directed to write it. If it's passed this way, then yes, we would have to address a grandfathering issue with Charlie Foxtrot's at some level, and we can find a process for it, but I'd rather just address that up front.
If there was no waiver.
If the waiver clause was not added.
All right. Bob, Alderman Osteen, it's all yours.
I've got one question and one comment. My first question is for Cole under section 610.070. Section A, number 1 and 2. This is regarding applications, convictions of felony or misdemeanors involving moral turpitude. Can you please clarify what would categorize or fall under the heading of moral turpitude?
That has been debated since the beginning of the phrase.
I'm just curious on why we would exclude somebody.
And it probably means very different things in Osage Beach, Missouri than it does in San Francisco or Dodge City, Kansas. That was a prior drafting choice for the peddlers and solicitors, and not wanting to open any more cans of worms than we already had. I didn't try to reinvent the wheel on that, but there is a pretty healthy amount of case law about what is and isn't moral turpitude because it's in a lot of our state licensing regulations. I cannot tell you what it says off the top of my head, but that was a decision of a prior board, and I didn't feel like I was directed to mess with it, so I didn't.
So this is subjective based on our decision.
And
you know that I am very much about making guidelines very finite. There's not a lot of room for interpretation.
It is not. I would not say it is subjective, but it is. But we create new crimes and we get rid of crimes all the time, and it has to have a certain amount of flexibility to it. As for is it only things that were crimes back in 91 when this was passed? Obviously not. I think it's, but there is a pretty good body of law on it, and ultimately it's going to cover your obvious stuff. It's that stuff around the margins. But I'll be very honest. This is the first thought I've given to moral turpitude since looking at this.
Okay.
So,
all right. I want to say one thing too. A lot of times I tell people I dumb things down so I can understand them. But in my conversation today with Tristan, I said, all right, now let me ask you this question because I heard his concerns. They seem like valid concerns. And again, I'm walking that fine line between trying to make everybody happy. But I said, so let me ask you this. If we could add the waiver, if we go down from 200 to 100 and we could add the county, would that do? And he said, everybody would be happy. So keep that in mind. If we dive too far into this, I know that we took a lot of time doing this, but that sounds like a fair agreement to me, and we can move forward on this thing. Did you have something, Alderman Huffman?
I do. I have a couple things,
I
actually.
still have the floor and a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
FYI. My other one was just a comment, and it's going back to the distance in which a food truck can operate and what we've got written in this regulation. I think we walk a very fine line and in a gray area when we try to dictate to private business owners what they can and cannot do within their property. Yes, I understand that there are neighboring businesses that need to be taken into consideration, but like I said, I'm just very uncomfortable with trying to dictate regulation for what they can and cannot do on their own property within reason. So like I said, we're walking a very fine line here.
Yep.
Obviously, we've all agreed that the distance of 200 feet is not acceptable for any of us. So hopefully this will go in everyone's favor, so that's all.
All right. Alderman Hoffman.
Is the 200 feet, did that come back from the Citizens Advisory Committee?
I believe it was. I
Okay,
believe
so-
that 200 foot was specific.
I just, want to point this out, that, we're entrusting them to bring us this proposal, and that is the voice of a lot of business owners around Osage Beach. So if we're going to change that, we're basically saying we don't agree with the Citizens Advisory Committee.
That is their recommendations,
Right.
just recommendations.
Sure, right. But, we do know that there are restaurant owners on the Citizens Advisory Committee. So it's just something to point out. I agree with you, 200 feet seems too far. But we were also concerned, the reason I think we were putting in Morgan County, Miller County, Camden County, obviously we should have included Morgan, I think we all know we missed that one, but we thought we were helping the food trucks out that were local. And by keeping out, an influx of food trucks coming down and eating up all the good places from Branson or from St. Louis, Kansas City, and it sounded to me like maybe that's not the case. Like maybe the food truck people around here are okay with it being anyone. So maybe we shouldn't even go that far with I want to look at it as, are we protecting them or are we not protecting them? If we're not protecting them, what's the point of putting the verbiage in there?
Can I answer that one? I'll be honest, that one does give me a little bit of heartburn. I can't tell you, I think it's defensible, but it's also attackable. And the reason, I've always used counties just because it's always easier to prove what county something's in than, within so many miles, getting out a protractor and figuring out, where somebody is. But yeah, I'm not really sure what meaningful difference it's gonna make.
Honestly, can I address Tristan on this? Do you feel like us trying to exclude more counties or anyone that's not Morgan, Miller, Camden, does that help you guys, or does it not really bother you?
Hey, Tristan, if you don't mind, you and Ashley both, please come on up to the microphone so we can hear you.
For sure, and I'm going to actually let Ashley answer that question first.
So the reason I was raising my hand, as the president of the Lake of the Ozarks Food Truck Coalition, I am very stern in saying our policy, we live at the Lake of the Ozarks, the pie is big enough. The pie is big enough. We actually voted as a coalition to not cap the number of food trucks that we allow at our festival, because we want everybody, it's not about experiencing just us, it's about experiencing a whole different experience. Sitting down at a steakhouse to a steak and a baked potato is different than going and experiencing different food trucks from different walks of life, from different recipes. They're gonna make it different than you make it at home, different than grandma makes it. It's an experience. So I see where they felt they were protecting the home base. I travel as far as Nebraska with my food truck. I have not run into a clause similar than any other. I've got a 1-inch binder full of every license and inspection and regulation I have to deal with my personal truck. I haven't seen one about outside counties. As long as you can prove where your water comes from, where you're dumping your water, and where you are storing your food, and you have a commissary, that's really all they ask. The furthest I have been asked is down in Leclerc County. They want to know how often my water gets tested, which if it's public, it's monthly. If it's weird, if it's public, it's yearly. If it's private, it's monthly. So I do see where you're going with that as far as not wanting to allow others. Are we just addressing that, or are we addressing other parts of it?
Well, I don't want to name specific restaurant owners, but the Chick-fil-A truck is something that is a problem for some of the other restaurant owners. And the restaurant owners here at the lake, they've been here forever. Their families grew up. I tell you, they've made their living forever. And I think that we have to take into account how important they are to Osage Beach. So, Chick-fil-A coming down and setting up across the street and selling chicken sandwiches for half the price, I don't like that. So I'm trying to find fair verbiage here to allow you guys to come in and do what you want to do and still protect our base restaurants as much as we can.
Absolutely.
Can I step in? So I actually would tackle that differently. So I think that there are comments earlier about a number of aldermen over here that were bringing up points about they just want to take out A, B, and C of the fees that they're charging different people and just make it $10 a day. The problem is that I spend like 250 days a year in Osage Beach. So if you're going to do that, you just doubled the price of what I'm already paying. So that doesn't help us. So, but what it does help is you can do that to where if you're only one day a month or a certain day, number of days a year, like Chick-fil-A, you want to charge them up. You want to charge them up the yin-yang, you go right ahead. You don't have to do it by setting parameters as to where they can be and when and so on and so forth. Just make it a certain time to where, hey, if you're, if you're here, like it's written. I love how it's written because the people who are just there day by day, I know that doesn't look like a lot of money, $10 a day, but if you, they're a lot, it adds up. So the more you're here, the less you should pay, which means the Chick-fil-A's would be paying the most. And I think we can all agree that they can afford it. So then sock it to them. But I'm just saying, I'm with you, but I do love the idea that this is America, the pie's big enough, guys. And the ones that are good enough are gonna stay in business and the ones that aren't. It doesn't mean I love Chick-fil-A coming in to undercutting my prices and doing everything because I don't sell a darn thing when they come to town. But I would just say then use the pen to get the money from them instead of a policy that would greatly hurt others. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Thank you very much.
I was going to follow
Thank you.
that up with saying that,
Okay.
favoring the local businesses is great, but opportunity is great because those businesses might end up wanting to move here. Those might become citizens. We have people that are here for the festival that have talked about, oh my gosh, it would be so great to move here and be a part of this. And so keep that in mind as well, that we're not trying to block our walls and build up walls, keep people out of the lake. We want to keep them welcome here. I really like his idea. If you're going to try to keep people from coming in and make it a $5,000 a day in 8 hours, make it harder for them to do so without making the year-rounders. Because we're not always protecting the right people with those extra regulations.
Thank you,
And
Ashley.
that's what I worry about.
Thank you.
Can I respond to another thought? I just want to point out too that this would be, I think, our only ordinance that treats citizens differently based on location. We don't have anything else like this on the books that says, Hy-Vee has to pay more for its business license because they're based out of Iowa, but, when we had Woods would have paid less because they were local. We don't have anything like that on the books anywhere else.
Well, I'll finish quickly and then yield the floor to Alderman Schuman, who is just raising her hand, ready to go. I really like food trucks. I love our food truck event. I really think that this is something that Osage Beach needs to embrace, but I will voice a concern that since you brought up Wicked Willie's, if all of a sudden there's 6 food trucks lined up there at Van Hook's every day, all of a sudden we just lost Wicked Willie's. So I do think we have to take that kind of stuff into consideration. And I thank everyone, and I yield the floor.
Alderman Schuman.
So the commissary is where they store
And prepare, yes.
their prepare and stuff. Cole just kind of hit on this. I was going to say, I don't think we currently require any local businesses to have their main place, like you just pointed out, Hy-Vee and stuff, come from the local area as long as they are paying in their local sales tax. So it kind of seems odd to me to have the commissary within these counties when we don't require it of, businesses from around here can order their food or anything from any place that they choose as long as they're selling it here. So to me, that's kind of one thing to take into consideration. And I know that it has to do with health department and all that too, but that's just something to think about. My other question with the 200 feet, I didn't see anywhere in here, does it say anything about it being during business hours? Because I do know that there are some food trucks that may be set up and they're selling stuff at 3 a.m. and the local businesses aren't even open, but they are within 200 feet of a restaurant, but that restaurant's not doing business hours, so they would not actually be in competition with that business. Is there any way to do that?
Would zoning, would there be anything on?
Well, we have,
I didn't know if there was a rule on times that they could be open or anything like that.
we've got things that are addressed that way throughout the code. This is why the more I sit here, the little bit more issue I'm having with the whole, ideology of distance regardless of the number. Because fundamentally, what you're doing by putting a number within a different portion of the code is
Creating a
changing the
zone.
land use within a commercial zone on arbitrary pieces of property. And I got to be candid with you, I'm not sure that we can do that legally without taking it to the planning commission. Because you have changed the permitted use on certain commercial properties being different than other pieces of property in a commercial zone of the same zone. And with everything else, we have special use permits to do different uses, and they're listed specifically. We have all kinds of distances that we take within specific zones from certain things. But the one constant with all of them is that it is for the protection of safety and quality of life. Never, we don't want this business to have to do business against another business that's similar to that business, because at what point do you draw the line? Do you say now we can't do the little farmer's market at the mall because there are people in there that sell belts and little bow ties and baskets and books and what have you? When did food become different than those things? And I know food trucks are a little bit different than, you know, the fake Oakley people setting up a tent somewhere, you know. But, you know, they set up at the outlet mall in that bank parking lot, and you've got, you know, sunglass places in the mall. So it's, I'm not the attorney, but it feels like a very slippery slope from a professional planner and land use, you know, professional to put that number in there.
Well,
Because you're singling out specific property owners throughout your community. I think
Yeah.
it's.
Right,
I think
and
it's
like I was saying, with it, it's kind of, to me, it's kind of like saying, well, you can't come here, but this person can open a restaurant next to that restaurant, and they can be in competition with each other, but you can't bring a food truck here and compete with them. However, it is a slippery slope, but to me, also having the 200 foot in there, requiring it without a business that would even be in competition with them being open is kind of something to think about as well.
Well, what I was going to say is keep in mind that the current peddler's license does not have a requirement on distance. So right now, they're operating without a distance.
Follow-up question,
Alderman
sorry.
Ross.
So I'm going to ask a couple questions. Today, can these food trucks sit up wherever they want?
Yes,
Okay.
With private property owners.
as long as, on the other conditions that this retains.
As far as why and I brought that up, why there was a concern about certain, you know, food trucks from different areas, they have, if Chick-fil-A from Branson comes up here and does $5,000 worth of business in a day, they're employees and they take that money home. They make no investment in this community, okay? And that's the challenge that I have. So, as we start this conversation, I watched this go on, and I told the mayor this early. I've told him again that I think what I've learned throughout all of this is we probably shouldn't change anything. Today, you all can come in for $500 and you can put your food truck with owner's permission wherever you want, whenever you want, okay? I believe the original concern is the $500 was prohibitive. For 6 months, I'm not convinced it is. And so at this point, because we've had our citizens who, as business owners, are concerned about 200 feet, and I've always been concerned, that I would brought that up, that one business owner should not be able to tell, or one property owner should not be able to tell another property owner, or we shouldn't be telling what he can or can't do with his legally zoned property. Then this thing has all, be careful what you ask for when you start down these paths. But I think that what we've caused here is something that's so confusing and so challenging that we ought to just leave it the way it is. And so at this point, that's my recommendation. And I won't be voting or making any motions towards any changes.
Any comments, questions from the board?
My follow-up question was, so food trucks, no matter what the zoning of the property is, they can be there. Doesn't matter if it's C1, C2, R1?
No, it still has to be
No,
General commercial only.
Okay, so general commercial.
Yeah, industrial down to general commercial.
Okay, just no residential.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Alderman Schuman.
Do food trucks pay sales tax on whatever they sell within our city?
Yes.
Absolutely.
So we are getting revenue out of it. They may be taking their bulk of their money back where they're going, but they are still paying taxes.
Correct.
Okay, I was just making
Oh,
sure. I
yeah.
thought so, but then I got a little confused, so.
Absolutely.
Alderman Osteen. I'm curious about waivers and exceptions for this. And I'm thinking about certain events held throughout the lake area wherein food trucks are set up within sometimes 20 feet of a dining establishment, i.e. Dogwood Festival in Camdenton, Turkey Festival in Eldon, Apple Festival in Versailles. In those scenarios, obviously those food trucks, despite their ordinances, especially Eldon being the most restrictive, there are food trucks set up literally sometimes right outside the front door of an established restaurant. So, so are those, how would I don't see a lot of verbiage on our regulations on how that would be addressed, i.e. would there be certain weekends or events where it's open door policy? There's waivers, exceptions that will let you set up your food truck wherever you want.
Current ordinance doesn't provide for that, although obviously the Food Truck Festival is deep enough into City Park that it's not covered by any of that. We are the property owner, so we can cover that there. I didn't look at any of those. I did look at Lake Ozarks, and Tristan was close to correct. It's 150 feet from the main entrance of a restaurant, so that functionally knocks out, I think you guys probably tell better, but functionally knocks out the strip.
We're not allowed to park between McDonald's and the diagonal dating.
So there you go. So that, I mean, takes out the strip essentially, but they can operate elsewhere in Lake Ozark. But yeah, that 150 bubble.
What about Ballparks National selling food down at our park?
Oh, yeah. So we'd have to.
That changes, I think that might change the gig a little bit there.
Yeah.
We, the city, are basically a food service industry with the concession stand at the park.
Yep.
So,
and we don't have that covered in the.
And every time we allow.
All right, we're not going to get, sorry, folks, we're not going to go back and forth. Raise your hand,
Anyway,
please.
I'm just stating.
Alderman Osteen.
I'm just stating that we probably need to look at that for more discussion as well, because there are circumstances, which we just brought up, about we're allowed in food trucks basically within 200 feet of our own food serving establishment with the concession stand at the park. And like I said, but there are a lot of other events around the lake where literally the food trucks are set up within 20 feet of the door of an establishment. So maybe more discussion on exceptions, grandfather clauses, waivers. I'm not sure. I'm just throwing it out there for discussion.
Happy to take input on what exceptions and waivers the board might be interested in.
All right, thank you.
Well, here we are right now. We have the first reading of this, and it's obvious that it doesn't look like it's going to come to an agreement unless we have a motion on the floor with amendments or motion to table, motion to proceed. I don't want to keep just kicking the can down the road. That's why that's why I wanted to talk this out tonight. And I don't like to say, well, let's table it, and then we come up with 100 other different questions and answers. And this may be a little unorthodox, but I do want Tristan to come up, please. And we generally don't go back and forth with the audience, but I want, but I know when Alderman Ross brought up the fact that he's not convinced the $500 every 6 months was excessive. I saw you wanting to, so please address that, and then we're going to move on.
I appreciate the sentiment, actually, sir. I'm sorry, Mr. Ross. My thing is just if I want to run a food truck right now, as it stands, I'm paying $1,275 a year to do it in your town. If I want to open up a restaurant in your town, it's $50.
All right.
I mean,
Mayor, can I
so,
ask
and also everyone needs to keep in mind that all of us are moving around, so I have to pay for licenses in Lake Ozark, Camdenton, Osage Beach, Morgan County, everywhere. And so $1,200 here, $500 there, $400 there, it adds up. And so that was the only issue I had. But other than that, thank you so much. I appreciate everything you're doing for us.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Well, I was just going to ask Tristan, in general terms, how much is he paying to set up his food truck in other cities near us?
$50.
$50 for the year?
$50 a year.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Comments, questions from the board? Do we have any motions? Alderman Hoffman.
Well, I'll throw this out there. I really think we should table this and talk about it and come back to it, because if we
Are you
vote,
making that a motion?
I will make a motion to table this.
All right. Is there a second?
I don't think we need a motion. I just think as long as there's no approval for first reading, I think that we don't have to table it. Basically, it just comes off the agenda.
He made the
So if no one
motion.
makes a motion to pass or to approve, it automatically just goes by the wayside.
Well,
I think
he
that's
made a
part of our
motion,
process.
he made a motion.
There is a motion on the floor, and I think they functionally get to the same place.
Yes. He made a motion to table. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Alderman Osteen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Is there any opposed? All right. This has been tabled. We'll take everything into consideration. We'll be happy to visit further. And I do want to come to some sort of resolution in the near future. But until then, operate as is.
Can I ask one question?
Yes, sir.
If we were to reduce, is there a way to reduce that fee without it going back to the voters?
Yes. Yes. I think so.
Or do you need, okay.
That's a solid he thinks so.
Pardon me?
That's a solid he
I
thinks
had to
so.
pause and think for a second. But yes, I mean, and that was, I mean, that was ultimately the kind of the original direction I was given, was to find a way to reduce how burdensome the fee was.
All right. Thank
So,
you all
yes.
very much.
Thanks for coming down.
Thank you, everybody, for your time.
You're still welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting.
Back to work.
It's been riveting, but I
All right.
appreciate it.
Twin 2-year-olds.
All right, thank you, everybody. And I do know, with this, we do have some work to do. I really would like to come to an answer to this. All right, next we have Bill 24-10, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to execute supplemental agreement number 9 to the professional service agreement with LOR Engineering, doing business as Cochran Engineering, for the design of Phase 1 on the site improvements at Phoenix Park for an amount not to exceed $114,000. This is the first reading. Assistant City Administrator Mike Welty.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. This agreement will provide Cochran, our team at Cochran, the ability to start designing the new playground, splash pad, and pavilion that we've all talked about throughout the park master planning process. The design for this project was budgeted at $165,000, but the actual, after we dug into the details, the actual engineering cost is only $114,000. I do recommend approval.
All right, comments, questions from the board? Alderman Ross.
So I'm just going to make a comment about what, and I'm glad Dave's here. There was a time today in the last 5 hours where I was going to vote against this. And I will tell you that I'm concerned about some of the things that have occurred in the last few months. And I do not have the, for lack of a better term, the confidence that I should vote against it, but I'm very concerned that I should vote for it. And so I'm going to go ahead and approve, or I will vote to approve this. I don't know what the rest of the board will do. But there are questions out there about processes and how consistent we are, and whether or not that we are doing this in a way that I feel is in the best interest of everyone. And so there are becoming concerns. I'm just letting you know. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
I would just like to reiterate what Alderman Ross just said. I agree. I know that part of that is probably from us changing as much as we did over the engineering process for developments. But I too am concerned with just the process and how it's going. And I think that this alludes to the fact that we need to be aggressive about getting a city engineer here and find a way to make that happen as quickly as possible.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve first reading?
Motion to approve.
Alderman Hoffman, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Ross. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, first reading passes. All right, next we're going to move on to Bill 2411, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to execute supplemental agreement number 10 with LOR Engineering, doing business as Cochran Engineering, to design the Rockaway Lift Station emergency storage for an amount not to exceed $66,000. This is the first reading. Mike Welty, please.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. You may remember we struggled with this station mightily throughout the third quarter of 2023. We discussed during a lot of the budget planning the idea of adding storage to this facility to bring it up to the current DNR standards that are provided for us for these types of stations. This was put in the budget at $70,000. The engineering, once Dave dug into it, ended up coming in at $66,000. This will allow them to go ahead and move forward with the design on the expansion of the storage at Rockaway. I do recommend approval.
Comments from the board, questions? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve first reading?
Motion to approve.
Alderman Schuman, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Hoffman, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. First reading passes. Next, we're going to move on to motion to approve deviation from City Code Chapter 410, Article 6, Stormwater and Drainage, and the Osage Beach Design Guidelines, Section 4. Am I reading the wrong one?
Did we jump out of order? No?
Page 114.
Okay, all right. Sorry.
That's okay. I'm going to start over.
have
Motion
any-
to approve deviation from City Code Chapter 410, Article 6, Stormwater and Drainage, and the Osage Beach Design Guidelines, Section 4, Storm Drainage, as adopted by City Code, as requested by the developer for Beach Drive roadway project. All right.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to recuse myself from
Very
this
good.
item
Thank
due
you.
to conflict of interest.
Thank you.
Mayor, I'll take this.
Assistant City Administrator Mike Welty, please.
Mayor, I do have a statement prepared, but if there's something that you would like to say first, you're welcome
No,
to.
you go first, please.
Okay. The developer for the Osage Beach Road project is asking permission to use alternate BMPs for the erosion control, deviating from what is called out in the design guidelines. With this alternate erosion plan, the project developer would like to request modifications to what is called for in the storm drainage design guidelines under the erosion sediment control plan, section A.4.A. It states there that the wire back fencing with steel T-posts shall be installed around the downhill edges of all disturbed areas. The engineer for the developer, Alpha Engineering, is stating that since they are the engineer of record for this project, they should be able to dictate the BMPs that should be used based upon the specific needs of this particular project. In this case, they are asking to use mulch berms along some of the lower limits of disturbance. The mulch berms are intended for areas where low amounts of stormwater flow or velocity are present. Steeper areas with concentrated stormwater will still require the wire-backed silt fencing and/or straw bale checks. There's also been some question about availability of some of the steel posts or some of the previously mentioned BMPs, and I think that those things are being resolved, but I think currently they are a little short for just having enough to cover all of the project as is required in the design guidelines. Both the city engineer, Dave Van Leer, and a representative from Alpha Engineer here, as well as the developer. So I do recommend approval. If the board has any questions for any of those people, they are here and can answer those questions for you.
All right, thank you. And I just want to say something too before we go to comments and questions from the board. I was involved in that meeting as well, and while I know the ordinance written to protect a little more than we had in the past, as well as it was intended, there's some things we didn't take into account. This developer is a perfect example of that. When you're required to put steel back fencing to control sediment erosion from going on your own property, that just doesn't make sense. So while the ordinance is something that I understand we did for a reason, I think we need to make common sense, and common sense needs to prevail here, and I do support this as well. So with that being said, Alderman Osteen.
I have no issues with the deviation, but I'm just curious on the process on why this wasn't a P&Z issue first. Mr. Patterson?
Well, this is, we've never.
I would have thought this would have gone through
It would go to the
P&Z.
planning commission if you're changing the ordinance, and there is no exception or variance on something like this from the BZA. This
Okay.
is your all's code,
and you're the only ones that have the opportunity to make exception to that code.
Okay, I support it, but like I said, for some reason, I thought somehow P and Z should have been involved.
Only if you look to change it. They don't, the planning commission does not have the opportunity to provide exception to any code. They make recommendations on code.
Okay, that's all.
Any other comments from the board? Alderman Hoffman.
So I think when we changed the guidelines to make them more strict, we were expecting to be getting an engineer in place, and hopefully they would have we could give them the flexibility to change per site. Is that not, am I not correct about that?
The direction the staff was given was very clear that, I think Alderman Osteen said it earlier, was to remove as much discretion from it as possible. And this is a natural result of removing the discretion, as the board removed it from staff, and so now only the board has the discretion to waive it.
So then it needs to, each development needs to come through our city engineer and then come to us and us approve the changes. Is that correct?
If somebody doesn't want to follow the guidelines, they need to come to a full board meeting.
Okay. And currently, since we don't have a city engineer, Cochran is signing off on this and Mike Welty is signing off on it and recommending approval. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, Dave acts as our city engineer, so he is the city engineer. His team does all the inspections. It was made very clear to staff that we were to make the storm drain ordinance to a higher standard than what DNR provides.
Correct.
It is the only section of our design guidelines that we currently have that particular restriction on. There are 7 sections altogether. Section 4 is the one that we had so much back and forth and debate on last year, and that is the section that these particular rules fall into, and that section no longer provides, whether it's city staff or hired staff or any discretion to make any type of change to that ordinance. And so because of that, we are bringing it to the board for their decision on how to move forward with this particular issue.
Okay, one last question. Assuming it gets approved here today, and then a month, 2 months from now, it's just not going right. Do we have the ability to go back and say, look, we gave this variance and we gave it a shot with you, but it's not working? Is there a way to take it back? I don't know. And I'm not saying just for this one, but for all of them moving forward, because we have to look at every one of these developments individually. And I'm just concerned that, none of us are engineers up here. And we get into a situation where, we go ahead and we think we're doing the right thing, and then we find out a month or two later that, someone's property is getting damaged next door. A problem we've had in the past.
Section 5 of the ordinance covers exactly what you just stated, Justin. We do have recourse. Sorry to speak out of line.
Okay. Just wasn't sure.
Read the ordinance, you'll see Section 5 is basically out. But if I can speak again, this is a unique situation basically wherein our ordinances were put in place to protect adjoining properties. In this scenario, basically, the owner of this property owns the other properties.
Right, correct.
So we're trying to dictate a specific guideline to avoid harming additional properties, but he owns those properties. So basically, it's a catch-22. If we'd forced this to the letter of the law that we set this ordinance, basically we're forcing them to spend more money to basically avoid runoff into his own property. So this is just a very unique situation. It's not like this would come before the board very often, because normally when these are brought before the board regarding ordinances, et cetera, with erosion and runoff, et cetera, it's because there are properties adjoining that are not owned by that individual. This is a very unique case.
Yes.
I'm sorry, you done?
Well, I agree, and I wasn't specifically. I'm just worried about the process moving forward, and I firmly believe that a city engineer will help this whole process. But that being said, I do support this moving. I just want to make sure we're also looking at the future for the next developer that comes up.
Thank you. Mike Welty.
A couple things. First of all, this ordinance is in place not only to protect personal property, but also to protect the Lake of the Ozarks, which is downhill from all of our properties.
Right.
Personally, my opinion, if you want to solve this problem, you give discretion to the city engineer to dictate whether or not, changes to BMPs can be made. Right now, whether we had a city ordinance that was paid for by the city or a hired city ordinance, neither one of those people could do that. It still has to come back to the board as it is written right now. So just wanted to make that point.
Can I add something?
Yes, please.
And I want to add, because Ron White was in that meeting and he's not here today, but just by way of comparison, stormwater versus building code. The building official has the authority to, under the building code, to approve alternate means of construction that provide the same or better result. So in other words, if somebody comes in and says, you know, if the code requires 2x4 external construction and they want to use 2x6s, they can just, the building official can't approve 2x6 external construction even though even though it only requires 2x4s. And you don't also have to put in the 2x4s. You can replace the 2x4s with 2x6s because the building official is qualified to make that determination.
And that's where I would like to get to once we have a city engineer personally.
Yes. Okay, anybody questions down here? Alderman Ross.
Couple things. One, to Mike's point, but just for clarity, the goals and objectives on page 116 do not talk about adjacent property. This is about to prevent, the objective is to manage stormwater drainage within the city limits so as to minimize the pollution of the Lake of the Ozarks and prevent stormwater runoff damage. Maybe that is the private property. Does runoff damage to the maximum extent practical? So at the end of the day, it's around as much or more about the pollution and sediment to the Lake of the Ozarks, okay? First of all, you all are recommending this, staff, you, Dave, Mike. So do you recommend that we change the guidelines to allow these where they are sufficient, meaning mulch berms?
Not just mulch berms, any form of BMP that is equal or close to an equal.
And okay, Mayor and I talked about this today, all right? I have no problem with the fact that of continuous improvement. We started something here, all right? And over time, we're probably gonna learn that we could have done it even better.
Absolutely.
All right? And so in that respect, I'm okay with granting this variance as long as we continuously improve, okay? I am not, I'll be honest with you, for several reasons, and we can do that at some other time, ready to just say, staff, just do whatever you think is okay, all right? Because that's kind of what I thought I just heard was the recommendation. I am okay with approved alternates, okay? So, for example, if we say we want people to put a concrete parking lot in, but an approved alternate is asphalt, I'm okay with that, all right? And no different, for example, when I talked to Mr. Pruitt a few days ago, I wasn't very familiar with mulch berms. I did a little research on mulch berms, and there are places where mulch berms are sufficient and should do what we want it to be done. There are places where they're not, okay? And so this should be an approved alternate in my mind, or a best management practice that is possible. We talked about, and the board, I realize aside, but there was a concern at one time around the wire back silt fence, okay? So I don't know that we need to have a wire back silt fence on every piece of the downhill property, okay? But there are places where we are probably going to need them and require them, all right? So I am okay, but I will hold y'all's feet to the fire, to be quite honest, of approving this, but that alternate, when it's sufficient, can also be used. That the guidelines should be revised in that way. And so I'll take a leap of faith that that'll come back to us, and I will vote to approve this.
Yes, sir.
If I confused that, I apologize, Alderman Ross, but I don't think anybody could have said it better than you just did.
Okay.
Because that is additionally the way staff feels, is giving, leeway and allowing alternates, not giving a city engineer, whether they are hired or whether they are a vendor, carte blanche, exactly what you just said, sir.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve? Alderman Ross, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Alderman Osteen, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Why don't you do any opposed? Just 'cause
Any opposed? All right,
we
motion
have the bare
passed.
minimum.
Yeah, that's true. All right, would somebody want to let me, there she is. You were listening. Thank you, Mr. Pruitt. All right, moving on to discussion. like we've not had enough discussion.
Yeah, for sure.
We missed something.
Streetlights, you have exactly 3 minutes.
I didn't have
Mike
the
Welty, please.
amended agenda, so I'm like,
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. The goal here is really just to provide the board the data that we had previously discussed in an effort to kind of restart these discussions. Attached, you're going to find the original streetlight presentation that was provided back in '21, which reviews the various roads where streetlights are present, illumination levels at those locations, the spacing between the poles, some examples of cost comparisons between city-owned versus Ameren-owned, proposed streetlight guidelines that were brought forward but never approved, and I believe I included the ones that are redlined in there so you can kind of see where the changes were. Additionally, since these discussions took place, the Transportation Department has spent a lot of time replacing a lot of the city-owned lights with LEDs. All projects requiring lights moving forward are done as city-owned and LED. So I'm certainly open to talk about, to restart this conversation and talk about it however the board wants, but I do want to make sure the board knows and understands that the Safer Streets grant, which is coming up, is kind of a big part of this, and I think it would be a mistake for us to move forward without gathering the data from that grant and including it in any future plans that we have for street lighting master planning or changing street lighting ordinances. The reason I feel this way is because much of what we are going to be doing, or at least 50% of what we're going to be doing with that grant, is looking at pedestrian bridges over Jeffries, Case, Nichols, KK, Passover, the one-way couple, which is just a mess for us to try and find a way through. In addition to that bridge that's all the way down on the other side of the parkway, all the way to Mace. All of these bridges, in addition to the possibility of looking at a bridge that would span the Grand Glaze Bridge, are going to be evaluated, prioritized, looked at under great detail. There could be traffic studies done. All of this will be evaluated throughout the grant process that we're getting ready to embark on. And I just think it's probably in the city's best interest if we take the data that we have here that I've gathered for you and then hold on to that, find out what happens when we get out of this grant on all of those bridge ideas, all of the traffic ideas that are going to come from that, and then come back more informed with some professional consulting information to add to the data that you have there and kind of go from there. You can kind of see that I had already prioritized on the map some of those bridges. But that was just done between myself and Dave Christensen with Cochran. And no other input from anybody else other than Gina. So those are my opinions. Those are my recommendations. But obviously, we will move forward as the board directs, and happy to have this discussion with you today. However you want to start that or continue that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mike. Board questions, Alderman Osteen.
Mr. Welty, in this plan, on my notes here, we discussed basically the street lights need to be installed. I'm going actually under section 3B3.
Okay.
At all turnaround areas and dead ends. Have we done a thorough inventory of dead ends and turnarounds where there are currently no existing lights?
No, we have not. And many of our streets were already in place before a lot of these rules came into place.
So that's something we should probably put on the agenda? Or
Absolutely.
on a plan, because I'm reading through here thinking, okay, where basically are we missing streetlights? And one of the key things was it said all dead-end streets, all turnaround streets, and made me start thinking through when's the last time we drove through every street in the city of Osage Beach and thought, where are turnaround streets, where are the dead ends, where are there no streetlights? just for further discussion as we move through this process. I think that should probably be presented to the board.
All right, anyone else? Alderman Ross.
I would just say, to tag onto that a little bit, we don't, a lot of the cities, a lot of streets in the city, we don't own, okay? And so that's one of the challenges here. It's one of the, and our city is very unique that probably half of the streets are still private. And that causes unique complications every time we get involved here. I'm not sure maybe I've been out of the country for 3 weeks and haven't had a chance to think through this. I'm not exactly sure what the objective right at the moment is. I do think that there was a question all along about whether we should own them or whether we should rent them. I get that. And payback was always the question. And if in fact we can use Ameren's poles for our own, which they probably won't let us, then that would be the best way to go. If we can, if the payback is 25 or 30 years, then I still think that, Ameren is the best way to go, all right? Some people probably may disagree with that. But at the end of the day, I'm okay with waiting for this as well as the sidewalk as we get into it later, as we learn about this, okay? Because lighting is there probably is no lighting on those bridges right now. Is that a fair statement? Okay.
Some of them there is.
Right, okay. Ameren caused this problem, I'm not sorry, MoDOT caused this problem, all right? And MoDOT needs to be part of the solution, but they don't much care for that. And they don't agree with that. But we'll have to figure it out. I think sidewalks will be more of a discussion around that than even lighting. In the end, I haven't really got a chance to look through all these things, and I'll look through them over the next week or two or however before it comes back up. But I don't know that I have any necessary concerns at this time.
Yes, sir.
Just a couple things I want to bring up, and I know that Alderman Ross and I have been on opposite sides of this a couple of different times, but I have done a lot of research into whether or not it is cheaper for us to own our own poles versus having Ameren own them, and I stand by my statement. I sent an email to the board about this. It is actually vastly cheaper for us to own our own poles. If you want Ameren to put in a pole, they will put it in for you, but on top of you paying your electric bill, you're gonna pay a yearly rental fee. You're going to pay that maintenance. I'm sorry, not rental, it's a maintenance fee. You're gonna pay that maintenance whether you need to change the light bulbs on that pole or not. And we have a bucket truck that oddly enough, we got donated to us from Ameren UE. But we have the ability to change all of our own lights. And it is a huge cost savings for us to do so. And the staff recommendation is always that on every project that we do, we own our own poles. Yes, you put in a little bit of money up front to pay a contractor to put them in. But you're gonna do that whether it's Ameren owned or city owned. But you do not have to pay that maintenance fee. We simply maintain them as they are needed to be maintained. And with LEDs, sometimes these lights will last years before they have to be changed.
Yeah.
And it just does not make sense for us to pay a maintenance fee that Ameren puts forth when we have the wherewithal to do it ourselves. So.
Totally agree.
Alderman Ross.
So the math works something like this. On Mace Road, the pole and the light fixture was $6,000 per pole, okay? That didn't include the power to run tool, okay? So if you want to take $6,000 and add about 30 or 40% for the difference from the time of yesterday when Mace Road was done and today and what costs have went up 20, 30% at least, add into that the wire, the labor and so forth to put all the wire in, set the base, and then set the pole, and then add in the cost to maintain it, and oh, by the way, to replace it if somebody hits it, okay, which has happened several times, okay, then I think your math is a little different than what you're portraying. But until you put it on paper, that'll be hard to argue. But I can tell you that we know that based on the Mace Road, and I don't know that Cochran was involved in this at the time, but just the lamp fixture cost for those down Maze Road were $6,000 apiece, because there was quite a discussion, the mayor broke the tie on whether or not we would put those in. If we use Ameren poles, we don't have to, at the end of the day, if you just work with Ameren and their poles, or as like was done in our neighborhood, now that was 20 years ago, and I'm not sure what Ameren will do, they paid for the fiberglass poles and fixtures to be put in near the transformers, because there was no overhead power in Harbor Heights, all right? All the city had to do was start paying the $12 to $13 a month, okay? But Ameren paid for every other bit of it. So unless Ameren's changed all their policies, which some of them say they have, but I'm not convinced that's the case, there's still a very argumentative way to look at this from a financial standpoint. And until we put all the numbers on the table that you and I have talked about before, we're just talking about wind and air, because we're not comparing true costs to true costs. That's all I got.
Alderman Osteen.
I have actually stayed out of the own versus lease argument just for the reasons we just heard. My focus on this was to pinpoint areas where we are needing streetlights, areas that are lacking. Yes, that's only part of this whole presentation and discussions regarding the sidewalks, but once again, that is my focus. I'll leave the debate for lease versus own for others within the board. But I'm just wanting to move forward with at least getting more documentation, something before the board, kind of pinpointing where do we actually need to improve our lighting? What bridges do we need more lights? What dead ends, et cetera, and get some type of comprehensive that says we, as a city, based on our guidelines and codes, we're missing 40 streetlights, 50, 100, I don't know what that number is. That's what I'm looking for. Then we can start debating on lease versus own.
Alderman Hoffman.
Yeah, I second what Alderman Osteen just said. I have had a lot of constituents come up to me and just ask me, hey, how do I get a street light put in around my house, And I have to look at them and tell them I don't know, because I think the process is a little bit difficult to happen. Maybe it's just I'm confused with the whole Ameren, and are we going to do it ourselves too? But I agree with you. Like, we need to really figure out where we want to put these things and what that number is, and that might change the math too, as far as whether we want to rent or own. Mike, I do have one question. How much of a burden is that on this? Do we have enough staff? Do we have to hire more people if we do it ourselves, or do you feel like we already have the staff for that?
We're already doing it ourselves. We already have the staff to do it. And just to address one of Alderman Ross's comments there, Alderman Ross and I had a conversation a month or so ago, and he had directed me towards a contract that he had talked about that he thought that the city had with Ameren that would do exactly what Alderman Ross just mentioned. And I have talked to 6 different people with Ameren, and every one of them tell me the same thing. The city of Osage Beach does not have a contract with Ameren. If you want us to put up a light pole, we're going to charge you the same thing that a contractor would charge to put up a light pole. So maybe I'm just talking to the wrong people. I don't know. And I, as I've done in the past, I welcome your help with that, Alderman Ross. So if there is something I am missing, or if there's something if my contact does not have the information that maybe you have through a lot of your research that you've done, sir, you know how to get a hold of me, please do so, and we'll talk through that. But based upon the information that I have, it doesn't cost anything different for the city, for Ameren to put it up. They're just gonna hire a contractor to put it up just like we would. And then they're gonna make us pay that contractor, and then they're gonna come in and put their meter in, and then we're gonna pay the electric bill, and we're gonna pay their maintenance bill, or we're just gonna pay the contractor ourselves and pay the electric bill and not pay the maintenance bill. And that's in perpetuity for as long as that street light is in existence. So while there is some upfront cost to pay, and we certainly have the ability to decide what level of quality of fixture we want to put up, and obviously the ones on Mesa are some of the higher end ones. we can lower our standard there and put up a fixture that's more in line with what Ameren provides. But as far as construction costs, you're going to pay it either way unless there's some secret person at Ameren that I'm not talking to.
Okay.
Anyone else? All right, Mike, do you have the direction you need to proceed, or everything you wanted to accomplish with this discussion?
This was a long time coming. This was tabled a long time ago when I got sent over to Public Works, and thanks to Alderman Osteen, he has kept on me to get this back here. I'm glad we got the update. I think there's a lot more we need to talk about, but I also think that as we go through this grant process, streetlights are important in the Safer Streets grant process, because a lit street is going to be safer than an unlit street, or a lit bridge is going to be safer than an unlit bridge. So I think we table this. I'd really love to have some more conversation with Alderman Ross to see if is something we can figure out there where I've missed something or whatever. But otherwise, I do intend to bring this back once we go through that grant process.
Very good.
And at the same time, I've also wrote down a note. We're going to count how many streetlights are missing, and I don't know if I'll necessarily need to wait on that. I can bring that information back and bring it up in my comments, Alderman Olstein, at a future meeting for sure.
All right, thank you. Very good. All right, thank you, Mike. Might as well keep talking. Sidewalk master plan.
Sidewalk master plan.
Oh, I thought we just did that. Are we doing both?
That was streetlights. Now we're on to sidewalks. So
together.
It's not much different. You look at the bridges that we have listed out here. You look at the different pedestrian bridges that we all want to see, so we can start to see some of our citizens move around better between the different sides of Highway 54, the different sides, east and west, that we are separated by the Grand Glaze Bridge. And you see the booming businesses, the booming business we have in the building and planning department. And the future is that we need to move pedestrian traffic around a lot better. That was even emphasized even more by the horrible tragedy that we had on the bridge a few weeks back. That further emphasizes the need for these type of grants and for us to look at this stuff. You'll see in there that again, Dave Christensen and I have put forth some options there on which bridges should be built when. But I stand by what I said, during the other discussion, that I think that it would do us a lot more good for us to take the data that Dave and I have put together here and add it to what we learn out of the Safer Streets grant, and then come back with a much more informed idea of where that master plan needs to go. But I'm certainly open to any discussion.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions from the board? Alderman Osteen, boy, you've been busy tonight.
Chatty today. Going to our proposed sidewalk projects, and I'm sorry I didn't review my notes on this, but we had sidewalk projects listed for 2022, 2023. Did those get completed? Columbia Avenue, Zebra Road, Deer Run to Parkway, did none of those get done?
No, we put a lot of those on hold when the sidewalk master plan did not move forward. The one thing that I did try to do was I've tried, and I'm going to continue to try to do this even throughout the grant process, is there is transportation TAP money available every year or every other year. We applied for TAP money for the Columbia College sidewalk piece, which would have given us that's the last piece we're missing. We're in the process of designing the 42 sidewalk right now. All the other sidewalks that lead from Mace up the Parkway all the way to 42 and all the way down to Hy-Vee, with the exception of the bridge there that goes over the Highway 54 just down from Mace. That's all connected other than Columbia. So that's kind of the last piece that would kind of finalize at least one section of our sidewalk. There is more TAP grant money available this year, and I do plan to apply for it again. It is in the budget this year, but obviously since we didn't get the grant, that's not going to move forward. But But yeah, that's my plan, is to move that forward. The rest of it was just kind of on hold because we never really got this passed, Alderman Osteen.
Alderman Ross.
The one clarification on that, I believe the project in 2022, Osage Beach Parkway TAP, wasn't that the project in front of Deerberg's and Parkway Plaza, that one actually did get done, or am I wrong?
It did, and I apologize, I
That's
thought
okay.
he meant going down Zebras, because we have
That's
not
fine.
done that, but
one of
yes.
them on here did, Bob.
One of them did, I remember,
Yeah.
and that was part of with the special road district, I thought?
Yes, absolutely. They've partnered with us on a lot of these sidewalks.
But I'm looking at 2023, 2024, and thinking, okay, we had a sidewalk master plan. Obviously, we didn't follow it, because
It was
2
never
years worth of
blessed.
projects we didn't
Yeah.
do.
If I could, just to follow up on that, I mean, as I'm looking at the Zebra Road Deer Run to the Parkway, there's no way in the world you're gonna ever put a sidewalk in there for $144,000. I'm not even sure you can physically put one in there for $3 million, to be quite honest, the way it falls off on the one side and the drainage swell on the other. You know it well, you drive
Yeah.
up and down it as well as I do. So that's one of the challenges with this plan. Of course, it was done several years ago.
Almost
I get
3
all
years
that.
ago, this was done.
Right.
April
So
21.
I'm okay with your recommendation. That's all I have. Thank you.
Nothing, Alderman Hoffman?
I love sidewalks.
All right. Anybody have any direction for, Mike, do you have what you need then?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
All right, all right. All right, let's move on to department update list. You might as well just keep right on going, Mike. There it is. Update list, comments, questions, concerns, anything?
I think we've had a little, just to apologize to the board and maybe the people at home watching. We've had a little bit of static tonight. I'm obviously going to have to get a hold of Morgan Music and see if I can figure out what is going on. That was not here last meeting, so we did have a little issue with a microphone that Alderman Ross helped me fix right before the meeting, but I didn't think that would cause it, but we'll look into that. Other than that, that's all I have.
All right, thank you. City Clerk, Tara Barrett.
I don't have anything, thank you.
All right, City Attorney, Cole Bradbury.
I have nothing fit for public consumption.
Nope.
Read into that what you will.
I didn't forget him this week, Alderman Schuman.
Thank you.
All right, Human Resource, Michael Ray. Oh, Chief Davis, darn
Oh, you were so close.
I know.
Almost made it.
I'm new to this. Chief Davis, please. I know you got a bunch.
We had our new evidence custodian start Monday. She's hit the road running and trying to get all that caught up and cleaned up downstairs. Tomorrow we have Cops on Top from 6 to 6. Myself and Lieutenant O'Day and some of the other officers will be up there raising money for Special Olympics.
Is that Hy-Vee gas station?
At Hy-Vee gas station, yep. So come by and see us in the morning. Then next Friday, the Super Plunge starts. Myself and Lieutenant O'Day and 16 other people are doing the 24 plunges in 24 hours. So our first plunge will be at 3:30 next Friday, and then we'll go every hour. And then on Saturday morning, we have the Strut, Polar Bear Strut 5K that starts at 10, a chili cook-off at 11, Pee-wee plunge at 1 o'clock, then the parade of costumes at 2 o'clock with the regular plunge at 2:30. So come out and support Special Olympics, and it's a good time for everybody. Since Ron's not here, we did get the new dog kennel. It's out back. We've actually had 2 residents already. So, and it sounds like there might be going on another 2, so we may be double booked before the end of the night. I don't know.
Good.
We'll see what happens.
That's good.
We've got 1 offer letter out, and we should have another one going out as soon as the officer, or he's a retired officer that's wanting to get back into it and gets his post certification current.
Did we take
So
yours?
that takes up to 24. Very good. If everything goes well. That's all I get.
Michael Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. So last week, you all would have received the information, the additional information from the loggers workshop on January 11th. I've talked to a couple of you regarding the information provided. I'd just like to see what steps you would need from me to move forward and what questions you might have.
You want those in the form of email?
However you'd like to do it.
All right, very good. Timeline? What do you like to buy?
however long.
I'd be more definitive.
Well, I
February
just.
29th.
Okay, so.
All
if-
questions.
If they went out 1 week ago, and I've talked to 2 of you, could I expect to see any more comments from 3 more of you within the next 2 weeks? Or is this just a dead discussion? Should we just?
I think 2 weeks is a good time.
I say deadline February 29th.
Very
for all
good.
questions,
All
concerns.
right,
Second that.
Board, 2 weeks to get a hold of Mr. Ray, please. All right, very good.
That's it.
All right, thank you. Airport, Ty Dinsdale.
Nothing, sir, thank you.
Barry Gregory.
I have nothing, sir.
City Planner, Kerry Patterson.
I'm also in the nothing, but I did enjoy the conversation tonight. It was great. Really, except for everything Mike talked about. Everything else was good. Yeah.
Dave Van Leer.
Thank you, Mayor Harmison. Just thanks to the board for approval of the 2 supplemental agreements that were in your packet tonight. As always, we appreciate the opportunity to keep working with you guys. And from the comments from Alderman Hoffman and Alderman Ross, I hope I could have the opportunity to speak with you guys over the next few days to learn some of your concerns, and hopefully we can address those moving forward.
Sure.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Alderman Juman.
I didn't have much, mainly just this weekend is pub crawl, so Friday and Saturday, so everybody be safe if you're enjoying, and even if you're not out on the roads, everybody be safe and have fun. It's a good event for the area, and I think that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Alderman Hoffman.
Is the communications officer position, I know you told me beforehand that it off your desk and it's back to Gina's. Is that where it's currently at?
As of this afternoon, yes.
Okay. And do you have an ETA for when you think it's going to be likely to be posted?
Not off
Or
the
is that-
top of my head. I do believe that position was budgeted to start around April. I think that's what the board approved for budget. But again, it's, we can get that posted at any time. It is a new position. The job description did have to be completed. If you'd like me to rush everything through and just bring in somebody off of the street without having a definitive of what we need, we'd be more than happy to do that for you.
Clearly, that is not what I want. However, I would like to know what the target date is for when it's going to be up and listed. That's all I'm asking.
I have no target date.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to congratulate the Kansas City Chiefs, won the Super Bowl, and I would like to give a shout out to the 2 gentlemen who took down the assailant at great risk to themselves. And other than that, everyone have a safe pub crawl.
All right, thank you. Alderman Osteen.
I don't have much this evening. I've been very chatty, so. Just want to wish everybody a long, happy weekend for those that are off on Monday, since it is President's Day. So the majority of us, hallelujah, a long weekend. Safe pub crawl. Good luck to the police force. I'm sure they will have their hands full. Hopefully no major incidents.
We'll be out in force.
So other than that, that's all.
All right, thank you. Alderman Morose.
First of all, regarding the polar plunge, sounds like the forecast for the weather will be a lot better than this Friday.
Tomorrow?
Yeah. I'd just like to extend a comment again and again. I know we keep reiterating, but to the Citizen Advisory Board regarding the food trucks, to keep in mind, we do, the city, appreciate these food truck vendors coming in. And of course, we're trying to make it equitable for everybody, but we also have strong reservation for our own business community of the people that are in business and have been in business for many years and new businesses coming in. They spend a lot of money for an investment to be here, and I'm not going against the food trucks. I'm just saying, I just feel that we just want to be sure that they're considered greatly. The other than that, I'd just like to have our city put heartfelt sympathy out to Kansas City for the tragedy that happened. And that's it. Thank you.
Alderman Ross.
First of all, I know it's late, but I was out of the country, but congratulations to Zach Wilbur, and glad to see that position filled. And Mike, if you will, I'll let you know, and if you need to see Zach, I'll be contacting him to have a little, spend some more time with him, probably in the next week or two, whenever our schedules both allow. Okay. Secondly, I wanted to recognize Chief Davis. You were on the radio today, did a great job talking about polar bear plunge. Your efforts, commitment, and dedication to that is commendable.
Thank you.
And truly appreciate that. And with one last question, you talked about the offers that were out and so forth.
Uh-huh.
Where are we currently as far as staffing on road patrol?
Right now, we're at 22 commissioned on.
So that means
we're-
short what?
So short on road patrol will be 4.
4,
Three.
okay.
3.
We're currently 3 short.
We're 4 short altogether, 3 short on the road.
Okay, because road patrol, in my mind, is what I've had the most concern about. So we have 2 offers out, and those are for road patrol?
Correct.
Okay, so even if both of those come on, we're still 1 short, is that right?
Correct.
All right, I appreciate the clarity, thank you. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. I only have 2 things tonight. I just kind of wanted to let people know of our conversation that Mike and I, Cole, and a whole bunch of people had about the bridge across the Grand Glaze that I've been talking about since when I was running for mayor. And we had a long conversation, and we had MoDOT in there, and Brian, the head bridge guy from MoDOT, we had a lot of conversations. And just to kind of recap, and attaching to the bridge, while it's not impossible, the amount of money that would cost to reinforce that, they're saying would almost be about the same amount as to do a freestanding. But we did find out from them that this is a real possibility to do a freestanding bridge. They would like to, if we were going to be on the top side or Oasis side, 15 feet away from the Grand Glaze Bridge with freestanding pillars. They need to be in line with the other pillars for Grand Glaze Bridge, but they did say that they would allow us to attach to it for stability. I can't remember the exact name, but it's something that they are going to be drawing up at least an estimate of what that would cost. That's the first thing. I was at the State House last week talking to some of our state reps and people up there. Where can we get the money for this? Because not only for public safety, which is a concern, but also as we continue to grow, connecting the branches of the lake, we could have the bike path all the way up to Katy Trail and so forth. And so this is a real possibility. It's a lot of work. We're going to be meeting tomorrow morning with somebody from Blaine Luchtemeyer's office. So I just want to let you all know that we're on this, and Mike knows how impatient I am. And when I keep hearing stuff like, well, it could be 2 years, but add 6 months to that just for the planning, and I'm thinking, well, no. And he's looking out there just smiling because he knows what I was about to say. But we are talking about this, and with this grant, a portion of that will be, they're going to give us some third-party people that know how to build these, look at these, come up with the price. It's a very pricey project, but it's something I want to keep on, and I really think the next 5 years we can walk across that place and say, boy, where did the last 5 years go? And here we are. So just kind of wanted to update you on that. We're not giving that up. And the only last thing I have, and thank you, Cole, for reminding me, Gina is under the weather today, but it is her birthday. So if you get a chance to shoot her a text or tell her next time you see her, happy birthday. And that's all I have, folks, but with that, if I have a motion to adjourn. Alderman Schuman, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Hoffman, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, meeting adjourned.
Hey, Dave, Van Leer, are you in town next week at all?
How about that?
Plan to be?
Let's do our meeting.